Okay, we are watching Bert play a game on the io.js TC meeting for May the 13th. So welcome anybody that might be watching this, which is currently 0 viewers, so nobody live right now. So we've got an agenda to move through, but first of all, we're going to do a quick... Oh no, we're going to do a review of last meeting. No, that's out of order. Let's do a quick stand-up first, and then we'll do a review of last meeting. That seems more sensible. So let's make Ben go first, and then we'll go across the names.
I upgraded V8, I upgraded C-Aries for the first time in, I think, 2 years, and...
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and I reviewed, I think, 5 or 6 pull requests. Oh no, let me rephrase. 5 or 6 pull requests I reviewed have landed, and that's about it for me. Bert?
I played Keen, and I just died. And other than that, I didn't do much because I'm working on strong group stuff. Well, maybe what's interesting to know is like last Monday, me and Michael and James Snell met up to have some discussion around possible reconvergence, etc. That was very useful. But we'll discuss more about that in this meeting, I guess. The next person is Brian.
Hello. Most of the stuff I've been working on for the past couple of weeks has been mostly looking over the JS portion of the code base, looking for potential optimizations and cleanup opportunities. Just recently I started working on kind of a DNS resolver in JS as a replacement for C-Aries possibly. And I've got the basic functionality working there, but of course there's a lot more to it than that, so I'm going to be probably working on that for a little bit. But that's about it for me. The next would be Chris.
You're amazing, Brian.
Bravo, Brian.
Yes, very good.
So over the last week, I've been so I had a pull request out to fix some race conditions in the REPL that I introduced. Sorry, everyone. And I am kind of poking warily at adding Control R history searching to readline. But it's also kind of a big chunk of code, so it's kind of hard to see where that will fit in. I think the next person is Dominic.
Mr. De Nicola.
Microphone, Dominic?
Yeah, you're still muted, dude.
He's probably still catching up on all of his TV shows.
He's reading the chakra soul.
Sorry, guys, I was in another tab. All right, so I was in Munich for the last 2 weeks working with the V8 team, and in addition to prodding them your way in a few issues, which I hope was helpful for getting context re-enabled and stuff like that, worked on this feed extras feature, which I sent out a intent to implement for, and want to start looking into how we could use that for io.js, but essentially it should allow us to put everything, or at least large portions of things, into the snapshot, which should make startup be a lot faster, and it's via pre-compilation, and give a few other benefits if we needed to use any native functionality in a more seamless way, because it would compile the function templates in at snapshot time, which might just be faster overall. But yeah, I'll put it. I'll link to that intent template in the minutes so you guys can check it out.
Is that the thing you put in the group chat?
Yes, it is.
So the snapshot, is that like V8 precompiles it to its own magical source for running?
Yes, essentially, yeah. It's like some ahead of time.
So the only way we know if it's state
Sweet.
is...
I think the next is me. I've been doing a bunch of issue management, and I also have been working on a tool that can more automatically upgrade our dependencies and apply floating patches. And you can find a working prototype of that at pull request number 1688. And the next would be Michael.
Hey, so I have been, oh geez, what have I been doing? I've been writing about some of the foundation stuff, getting kind of all the ducks in a row if we do join the foundation, making sure that all of the technical stuff is sort of moved out of the way, and also making sure that we kind of understand exactly how everything would play out and how everything would work. If we were to join, and make sure that there's no surprises. And yeah, and then answering a ton of questions in the join the foundation thread. Oh, sorry. Next, Shigeki.
Yeah, the last week in Japan is the holiday season, so I have very little time to work on the io.js. And I fixed several TLS bug, and one is very edge case and very hard to debug and fix. And I'm now asking the feeder to review my test, and I think that it is very good forward to. I found that the SSL error functionalities is getting more better. Thanks.
Trevor?
Yeah. So, yeah, helped with re-enabling snapshots. Thank you, Dominic, for the info and getting us in contact with V8 people to realize that the security flaws have been fixed. Thank you, Ben, for the reviews. Also been continuing to experiment with the new buffers API. I think other than some performance degradation we're going to experience, the API itself should work out just fine. And I think we might even be fine on the JavaScript side, so people won't even notice the change. The difference will be with, like, we will have some extensions, like all the uint8 array, like all the typed array methods will now also come on it, along with all the buffer supplied methods. But, I mean, it's working. So, like the JavaScript test passed. The biggest breakage will be in the C++ module side. But I think we might be able to get Nan to deal with that. Not 100% sure. Since
I think Benjamin is working on that over in NAN. At least he's aware of it, so it might be worth just keep on pulling him into any discussion on GitHub that you're doing.
Okay, will do. Right now it's just been all exploratory since we haven't even updated Next to 4.3 yet because, as Chris mentioned in chat, there is still a weird VM error occurring that we are not 100% sure why it's happening, so we've held back, as far as I know. Dominic, did you have something?
I was just going to say, I mean, if people haven't seen the thread, the performance degradation is going to be there definitely, but there's also definitely interest in getting rid of it. They're just, because of the way the V8 release schedule works, probably won't be until 4 or 5.
Yes, sorry, I should have mentioned that.
What's the size of the performance degradation we're looking at, approximately?
On my machine, we're going from approximately 200 nanoseconds on instantiation to 380 nanoseconds on instantiation from JavaScript. I still haven't performed sufficient testing from the C++ side, which will be the majority, which is actually the majority of use cases, because like all incoming TCP packets and whatnot all need to be passed to a new instance. And I think, actually, from the implementation, it will take about the same amount of time if I just had to shoot off the hip. So, but that degradation will actually be smaller, if not comparable, because with the current implementation, we have to jump from C++ to JavaScript in order to perform that. But moving to the array buffer implementation, we can probably stay all in C++. So at least with that use case, performance degradation will be minimal.
Okay, that's fascinating. That's because that's changed a lot since we first started looking at it. So that's really good progress. My status, I've been doing lots of little things. some things with the CI cluster, including this week we removed Ubuntu 10.04 because that fell out of LTS at the end of last month. So we no longer have that there, but we still have CentOS 5 to cover the much older Linuxes, and that will be in the cluster for some time yet, because I think that lives on in support from Red Hat for a long time. Yeah, 2017, as Ben is pointing out, it's just epic in terms of age. What else have I been doing? Just lots of little things. That's my status. So let's move on to review the last meeting minutes. And I'm sorry for the background noise I have here. Last meeting happened 2 weeks ago. We talked about release proposal for version 2.00. We fell behind on that release from the plan. It was agreed at that meeting, which I wasn't at, to release it on the Friday, and I think we got it out by the Monday or the Tuesday, but we had to cut the URL parse feature from that because of some last-minute doubts about the whether we could accept the level of breakage that it was going to give to userland. So that URL parse has been pushed back to a pull request again, where it is being changed to have less breakage. I can't remember what pull request that is, but Petka is working on that, and I think it's getting close to possible merging.
Yeah, I think it's ready. It's just looking for some LGTMs. So
yeah, it's just looking for a review right now, I think.
I think it's only the href that is a getter.
I think it was even saying that that's not an accessor anymore. Like,
okay,
yeah. But if there are any accessors, it's only href.
That's cool. Okay, so that would solve the main problem with that. I don't know what the size of the performance compromise we're making, if any, on removing the accessors from there, but yeah, all good. Forward port from 1x, I think that was just a Git discussion on moving from 1.x to master, because there were some things dangling in there that weren't in master. I believe that's all happened. There was probably talk of convergence with the James Snell dev policy repo, and there was talk about a combined io.js, Node.js TC call. Have they happened yet? I haven't been on any of those, but
yeah,
had combined calls?
Yeah, they did happen. There's another one tomorrow, actually, and then after that, depending on what we decide today, it may be mute. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I might actually be able to make the one tomorrow. Okay, so that was last meeting. Is there anything arising out of the last meeting that anyone wants to discuss? So I will just say that there is a TLS issue that we've been discussing privately that with regard to connection errors that may be considered a denial of service, but is probably not. That we're going to open it up to public discussion. Shieki is going to open an issue on that, and if people want to put their opinions in there with regard to whether they consider it a security issue or not, and whether there even needs to be changes, that will be opening up soon. Keep an eye out on the repo for that. So that's further action that just hasn't been public yet. Okay, so the agenda.
So real quick, so the first two items in the agenda have to deal with deprecation, and there's a lot of technical details that I think are actually being fleshed out pretty well in the issues, but none of them really, I don't think that we have a deprecation policy that really addresses these issues, or is really wide enough in scope to deal with them. And I just don't know how we actually figure out these without a really, really good deprecation policy that can address these. So I'm wondering if the solution to these first two issues here is actually to create a new issue that figures out a deprecation policy that can actually address this kind of stuff.
That would only apply to the first one because, as per the issue for the node path deprecation, I believe we're actually going to be discussing not deprecating it.
Okay, well, yeah. Well, I still think that if we should have a deprecation policy that could deprecate it if we wanted to and consider, right?
For sure.
Yeah. I think this should be a good use case.
I think what we've been struggling with at the beginning, we haven't successfully deprecated anything in the entire time of io.js or Node.js. And I'm not sure we're ever going to be able to, at least not to the point of ever removing it. You know, we could start putting warnings in the docs like we've done with domains, but I'm a little skeptical. Like if we can't pull off, you know, require sys, we can't pull off node path. I don't think we're going to pull off anything.
We might be able to pull off require this. Like it would be interesting to at least attempt to remove something, see how we go down with that.
Also, I think that some of the stuff that Chris has been doing could actually show us all the modules that still do that sys stuff, and what the impact is there, and we could actually try to get updates in all those modules before we deprecate it. Like that's something that we've never tried to do before.
And I'd be happy to get that started as well.
Okay, well, how about we see what happens with this discussion, and then somebody open a deprecation policy issue afterwards. Cool. Let's get into it and see what happens. So cool. The first one is 1451, which is about V8 4.4 moving index properties via external data. So I think the deprecation issue here is about smalloc, which is just not going to work, I believe, after 4.4, which is
it's gone. It's out.
Okay, and thankfully for that, that has only been around for a short time, so I don't imagine too many people have actually been relying on it.
No, I don't even believe there are any modules that heavily rely on it, if at all.
So we changed the docs to be deprecated for 2.0. Did we actually get a deprecation warning in or anything like that?
Yes. For thank you, Ben. He even got in the deprecation warning for build in case you're using the native API.
That is awesome. Okay, so this will be that nice test that Dominic wanted to see.
Okay, all right. You might be able to get away with removing smell.
Well, I mean, there's not much option. Like, there is no way for us to emulate that functionality with the removal of the API. So, I mean, whether we like it or not, it has to.
Okay, the issue is really long and has a lot of stuff in it. Is that the only thing that we wanted to discuss in the TC meeting, was that we are going to remove it for the next major?
Well, maybe, so we're going to replace buffer with something that's built on top of typed arrays and the array buffers.
Are we going to do that in 3.0 or 4.0?
Well, okay, so I forget, Dominic, who the other developer is on the ticket, but he has been kind enough to backport all the array buffer API or typed array APIs back to 4.3 that would be necessary to finish the buffer implementation on top of the UN8 array.
I think that's Benjamin who's involved in NAN, so he's the one that you need to keep in the loop.
Yeah, so I believe one of the deciding factors will be when can NAN catch up, or, I mean, how can they cope with this? But if we do decide to fully switch over in the next major, we'll have all the required APIs to do so.
Can we do like the switch over between a flag, like make it optional in 3.0 just for testing, and then I guess by the time we're at 4, it's supposed to be stable and we remove the old stuff?
Yes, that would be.
So
that would be
just
doable.
Keep in mind the timelines. V8 4.3 is probably going to be about next week, and then so 7 weeks from now we get 4.4.
Yeah, and fortunately, at least at the low level, I mean, at the high level in JavaScript, they work with it as just a regular data array. So there's no problem with the existing JavaScript APIs. The issue will be with the underlying C++ API, but since the majority of it just works with like a void pointer or a char star, we should be able to do a small abstraction to do a shim between the two and just pass the data to the same function. So yeah, we could definitely put that behind a flag.
Dominic, you said 7 weeks. Is that 7 weeks till they cut it, or 7 weeks till we get a Chrome with it?
That's a good question. Probably till they cut it, but that's usually like a week behind a Chrome release.
So we'd be looking at 13 weeks before it hits stable.
No. We're looking at set or no. They're going to cut 4.3 like within the next week.
Or when you say cut, you mean basically make stable.
Yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And then we'll see a Chrome release about a week after that, and then so we're looking about 8 weeks until we get a Chrome release with 4.4. So we're going to get the pressure to upgrade. Basically, upgrade pressure is going to come for 4.3 within 2 weeks, and then 4.4 within 8 weeks for us.
Yes.
Do we want to deprecate the buffer.readInt and writeInt methods?
No, because our current implementation is faster than the V8 implementation, unless V8 can catch up.
That surprises me.
I'm confused. Like, how is our implementation? Like, TypeRay doesn't have those.
So how do you feel?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's specifically on data view.
So plan then
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't want to break compatibility anyway.
Yeah, no, and I was mistaken. I was thinking of the data view methods and not the typed array methods. Actually, uint8 array, I don't believe, has any additional methods. Now, one thing that, Dominic, I'm not sure. You know if .length is a getter, or is that just...
That's a getter.
Okay. I'll do a little bit of testing with that. I don't think, with V8 optimizations, I don't think that will add much, but a lot of people just loop on that, but I think V8 is intelligent enough to hoist that.
Yeah.
Do some testing.
Yeah. Should be fine.
All right, so as soon as 4.3 gets landed...
Sorry, Trevor, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, as soon as 4.3 lands in Next, I'll open a branch and a ticket with the example implementation for the uint8 array.
Should we land 4.3 in Next even with the VM failures, just so we can do work? I mean, like, with the understanding that we're not going to release until they get fixed.
Right.
That would make my life much easier.
Yeah, I'm a little wary of like keeping trees red, but like it seems better.
No, it makes sense to me, so we can actually get multiple people working on it.
I'll land this after the meeting.
Chris, you can mark tests as flaky in the test runner. That would keep the build green.
Cool.
No need to lie. The build is red. We just need to fix it.
I'll comment in the issue and we can decide on a course of action there. But if there's nothing horrible, then I'll just plan on merging it into Next.
Cool. I think we're on to this next issue now. Right?
Yeah, move on. So the next one is the node path deprecation. So there has been a fair bit of discussion scattered across GitHub about this, and this was escalated to TC agenda by Roman, aka Silverwing, and I think Jeremiah, you were in on that. So do you want to lead us into this discussion on what we're actually discussing?
Sure. So the suggestion had been previously, I believe, to deprecate node path entirely. I'm not sure if we do or don't document it. And Dominic had said that we decided a few TC meetings ago to go ahead with the deprecation, although I don't remember that. And currently, however, there are a couple TC members and other collaborators who are commenting that there are actually useful use cases for this node path functionality.
It sounds like we're going to keep it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there aren't useful use cases that aren't just plain abuse, and people will argue that, no, I really like to abuse it. But, you know, if people are abusing it to the extent that we need to keep it, then we should keep it and we should document it. Right now it's undocumented, and we should treat it as a first-class feature and not like something.
I think the documentation was removed around 0.6, wasn't it?
Yeah, maybe somebody should have removed the feature at that point.
Or at least marked it as deprecated.
Yeah, I sort of agree with Dominic here that uses of it are pretty much abuses. Maybe we should document it and say it's there, but it's like domains. Maybe don't use them.
So it is documented. It's just that it's not often regarded. I mean, people don't typically look at it. When I was trying to weigh in on the issue, I had started out writing a long comment about why we should deprecate it, and then I realized, looking at the Google search results for the term node path, that it's kind of ingrained itself into the sort of background tutorial on how to use Node. And that's kind of my concern with removing it now, is that we would make a lot of answers invalid all at once and potentially lose new users. Or
yeah, I mean that also, like, the thing that scares me about it is that it's not like we can look through all the packages in npm and be like, oh, who uses this and who we're going to break. Like, people use this on their local machines and in their applications and stuff, and like there's just no real way to test for it or know how many people we're going to break.
I didn't realize it had been around since like pre 0.6, but that's also a long time that it's been around and that people have been writing stuff about it then.
It was common usage like way back, and then sort of the npm patterns started to get a lot more firm, and then we sort of realized that it's probably not a good idea to have global stuff because it just breaks stuff.
Yeah, maybe we should write documentation that says, hey, there's this feature, don't use it, there are better patterns, and make that the official documentation, and just kind of leave it there. And if in a couple of years nobody's using it anymore, we can talk about this again.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, I think we're agreed, but who's going to do that? Michael, can you open an issue that it needs to be done?
Yeah, I'll open an issue on that, and I'll open an issue on the dep policy, and then we'll let
So there are docs, as well as several other features that I never knew about, like prefix libnode and home/dots node_modules, other horrible things. So I'm not sure there's actually an action item now that I look at the docs.
The action item is to talk about how you probably shouldn't use these things.
Gotcha.
I'll open an issue, and my guess is that somebody from npm might end up writing the actual documentation since they know best. So, okay, cool. Next item.
Okay, next item is probably for you, Michael. You opened an issue. Sorry, by the way, that previous issue we were talking about is number 1627 for people listening later on. Next one is issue number 1664, which is Join the Node Foundation, opened by Michael. So this is on TC agenda because, Michael?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's mostly a consensus in the issue, but we have to say, yes, we're going to do this now, and actually do the move. So, if anybody doesn't object, then we'll move forward and actually do the move. But I mean, the thread is mostly positive. Almost entirely positive, actually. Even some of the people that were sort of against it the last time we had one of these threads came back and were for it this time. So it seems to be pretty well accepted. If we decide to do this, the next action item literally is to just move the whole org over, like as soon as Friday, and then start dealing with everything that rolls out after that.
What does it mean, move the org over? Like we rename the org? You can't just move an org.
Yeah, no, you can rename an org. So we'd rename the org.
No, I mean, you can't just move an org, but you could rename it. So you're saying that the io.js org would be renamed to
Node.js. Yeah.
But we don't have access to Node.js.
I do.
Org. You do?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
This is the stuff that I've been figuring out for the last couple weeks.
So what are the implications of doing that while Joyent still hold the trademark on Node.js?
No, they've already agreed to hand it over. They're like in the last stages of moving the paperwork over. So that's done pretty much. And then what would happen is that we would move the org over, and then io.js as a repo would stay, and we would keep doing io.js releases for the next at least few weeks, right? And then that convergence repo that Jeremiah and Chris and James Snell have been working on, that's in James Snell's GitHub, that would move over and become Node.js/Node, basically. And then that's where we would work on like the next version. And the next version of this meeting, we would invite the people from Node.js onto it.
Is there still the confusing thing where we're going to have Node.js/Node and Node.js/Node.js?
No, that's not true. We won't have that.
So is joint/node then just going to stay joint/node?
Yeah, because they'll do some more releases out of it for the time being, and then it'll just sort of like stop at some point. But there's no reason to try and move it over to our org if we're just deprecating it. Like it's just going to annoy their build system and stuff. So why? And once we start doing new releases out of Node.js/Node, then that'll just be the place. Yeah.
Do you know if GitHub will have like a redirect from the io.js org to the Node.js org?
Yes.
You would probably have to contact their support to get it arranged because.
No. I've already worked all this out. Trust me. It all gets forwarded. Everything in the io.js org will get a forward. Even the Git URLs and everything will just work still. The only thing that we might have to do is I imagine that some of our build stuff has like it gets a push notification and then it hits something in the API layer for GitHub maybe. And if there's anything like that, then that may have to move. But most of it should just have it like a normal forward. That works really well, as long as we don't forward twice. So there was like a lot of work over the last couple weeks to figure out how to stage this so that we don't have any double moves or double renames, because those wouldn't work very well. But as long as we just do one move over, it'll be fine.
So question, does this mean no one else can register an io.js org and then conflict?
So I'm going to do that right away, probably.
But if you register an io.js org, would that conflict with the existing, with it redirecting because we just renamed it?
That I can talk to the GitHub people about.
We should probably make sure it's about some details like that.
Yeah. So I have like the names of support people now and stuff. So if anything goes wrong on the day that we move it, we can get a hold of them and make sure that we get it fixed. Yeah, because I wanted to make sure ahead of time that all this stuff would just work. And I wanted to make sure that, like, for instance, when we go and delete the what is it called? When we delete the org, the Node.js org, we can move it right away. There's no like delay in between. So yeah, I'll actually, you know what I'll do? I'll just make sure that nobody can register an io.js org and work that out with them ahead of time.
All right. It sounds like you thought about it well, so that's okay. I would not do it Friday at 5 p.m. because if it goes wrong at that time, it will stay for the weekends, I guess.
If there's one thing we figured out, it's 5 p.m. somewhere, no matter what we do, because everybody is everywhere in the world. But
as long as it's not 5 p.m. at GitHub.
Right. No. We'll do it in the morning, and I'll make sure that I have people around and stuff. So, great. Okay, so is there any dissent? Are we good?
So Fedor wanted to register a -0. Prior to this, he couldn't join. But,
I didn't actually see a sign on his 0. I think it was just a 0.
It's just a 0.
Oh, it was a 0. Sorry, that was me interpreting. Sorry. I don't know. Is there anyone that's flat out -1 on this? So that probably is. That's probably the baseline there, Michael. So I guess that's an agreement because it's either 0s or 1s. Do we want to get a formal vote?
Yeah. I mean,
let's get a formal vote. Come on, let's do this.
Let's do it full on, yeah.
Let's just turn it into a thing. All right.
Okay. It's okay. Ben.
Left. Ben.
Yeah, let's go.
Just to be clear, what exactly are we voting on now?
We are joining the Node Foundation.
And you are transferring the entirety of your bank account to Michael's as well.
Oh. So I have no objections against joining the foundation, but there is an issue open. I think it's 1664. Michael opened it. It outlines the approach we're going to take for merging. Is that what we're voting on as well now?
That's actually already underway, and we already talked about it. But there is a change from my original one. So remember that originally we said that we were going to basically that everything would merge, or all the features, sorry, from each from Node.js and io.js would land and then go out in a release, and then afterwards we could propose removing stuff. That's not how it's going to work. What we're going to do is we're going to merge everything together, and then before we do a release, people can come up with any reversions that they want to do or anything that they might want to change before we do the first release.
So what happens?
So that's the main difference.
So what do we do? Like, does io.js just die at that point? What's that mean?
No, so io.js will continue releasing until there is a converged release, and a converged release for Node.js, right? And then when that release happens, what'll happen is that now that'll be at like 3 or 4 or wherever we're at, right? Wherever the next major is. When that happens, then all of the io.js lines will become Node.js LTS lines. So there will be like node releases of 1x, 2x, 3x if we end up doing 3 before this, and those will fall into the LTS working group, and there'll be LTS releases alongside Node 12 and Node 10, and then we still own all of the io.js assets. Like we still have the domain and the Twitter and all that stuff, and we haven't figured out what we want to do with them yet, but I'm sure that we'll do something fun with them, and we'll keep them around in some way that makes sense, because there's no use just like throwing them away. But the release lines from that point on would be Node release lines, not io.js lines, but all the io.js lines will now be Node lines, if that all makes sense.
Well, so I mean, is it conceivable that we might, or some people might want to keep the io.js brand sort of around, even if we formally are in the foundation and we are making decisions together with the people that release Node?
Right. So
I've heard that a lot. I even got an email like from somebody like 2 hours ago asking for exactly that. So this is coming up a bit.
So we have that option, right? So when you think about it in terms of like what are the assets for the io.js brand, like the website and Twitter, for instance, like those will be managed by the evangelism and website group, and they'll have the Node domain name and the io.js name, and they'll have the Node Twitter and the io.js Twitter, and it'll be sort of up to them to figure out what kind of fun stuff that we want to do with that, and how we want to keep it alive. Yeah.
I mean, in all practicality, I mean, okay, so we aren't just transferring the io.js repo over, just to clarify.
Well, all the working groups as well, right? It's the entire project of io.js, not just the. Yeah. This is feeling like we're not prepared. I know this is not going to be. I'm prepared. I have answers to all of these questions.
No, I know, but the fact that we are having to ask them in this meeting, I just wonder whether.
No, they have been asked before, is what I'm saying too. Like they've been. I mean, that thread's been alive for like a week, and we've been answering questions in it. I mean, I know
it has been, but a lot of us are just not engaged in it because it's one of those high traffic threads that we just don't have time for. So, like, I've been reading them, but mainly skimming. I just wonder whether we could. Can I suggest that we put this off for a week, and can we come back with a clearly outlined proposal for us to vote on?
Okay, like the longer that we push it out, the more difficult that everything gets, though. Like literally, the easier we do this, the easier it is to figure out what we want to do with the Twitter and what we want to do with the domain name, right? Like, until we do the move over, like the website group can't take responsibility for the Node website and like get everything ready so that we can actually do a converged release at some point. So, I mean, if we're all agreed that we want to join the foundation and that we want these working groups to live inside of the foundation, and we already know, like we already have actually said that these working groups, like whatever we do with like the Twitter handle and the branding, that's actually often a working group that's autonomous. Like, so they'll figure out what to do with this, and it's sort of up to them. And in fact, so hold on, let me back up. And even in my initial post like 5 days ago, right? If we move over and any of the io.js working groups, like after we move over, decide that they would rather just like not be in the foundation or whatever, we can they can vote to move out afterwards, right? Like they're autonomous. What we're really talking about here is like, do we want the next release? Do we want to move over? Like, okay, this is what we're saying. Are we ready to have io.js basically form all of the working groups for the foundation and to bring in the Node core people basically into this call? And so that the Node core people are like getting up to date on what essentially will end up being the next version of Node and io.js, because they're like a lot of those individuals are pretty far behind in terms of like where we've gotten, and our master is making up the master for the next repo. It's like the sooner that we can get all of this stuff together, the better.
Yeah,
Well,
but
I
you're
mean-
also implicitly asking for a vote whether we want to join the foundation. It's quite a big issue to have so many of us sort of at the zero, voting zero here. Like, it would be nice if we had a much more strong commitment to coming on and saying yes, 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 or yes, no, 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 whatever. It's just like there's a bunch of zero votes here, I think.
Well,
there's like
can
all the
we
questions
at
that I'm
least
hearing about
vote?
things that we don't even control in the TSC.
Can we at least vote and say let's go ahead and invite the Node.js core team into our TC meetings so we can all have discussions? I feel like there are more than one actionable item here. It's not like let's do everything or nothing. Let's piece this out a little bit.
Okay, so the problem with we've gone back and forth on that exact thing a couple times. We have a converged call. Almost nobody from here goes to that call, and the reason is because all that we talk about in that call is like these logistics about like how we do things in the foundation and how we merge things in the converged repo, because they're off still trying to get stuff into join/node. And so, like, until we actually say, like, hey, this is going to be the TSC that manages the combined project, we're not going to get everybody into a call each week, and they're not going to stop having their call.
No, why can't they just chime in and listen in on the decisions we're making, and then they can chime in and say, hey, by the way, we've been working on this. Let's shoot some ideas or something like that. You know, like it sounds like the meeting you discussed or you just talked about is different than us. Like, all I'm saying is that we invite them in here so they can give us feedback on the changes we are deciding. It's still going to be a normal meeting for us.
Okay, I mean, you're not going to get most of them on it, is all I'm saying. I mean, people don't come to meetings that they don't have anything to do yet, and all the things that they're doing, we're not taking responsibility for yet. You know, like by not converging yet, like, okay, so you look at what those people are doing, and they're working on, you know, specific features that have landed in O12 and have O13 stuff, and that we are going to converge into the converged repo, but we don't talk about them in this meeting at all. So like,
yeah, but I mean, there are things that, like, for example, Microsoft will be throwing a patch up to Node.js for their Chakra support. I think like they could definitely bring that up in a meeting like this and be like, hey, by the way, just letting you know, maybe even then all that does is result in an issue on GitHub, just so we're aware of it. Right? Just all I'm talking about is like general feedback, not like anything deep or intense. And I'm sure at the minimum, I'm brain farting his name, the new quote unquote lead, I guess.
Julian?
Thank you. Sorry, I was totally phasing out his name. I mean, at minimum, just him would be a huge help because he has a good knowledge of the scope of things.
I mean, I agree, but we've invited him, and before him we invited TJ, and nothing's changed until we've like decided that we're joining the foundation. Like, nothing practical has changed.
Okay, well, things have changed this last week, as we all know. And so
Chris just made a good point in text.
I'll make it in chat. So, for the record, I think that waiting until we have perfect knowledge of the road forward kind of seems like a mistake to me. I think this gets us started with actionable things that we can do at fairly little risk to ourselves. As Michael's noted, like, all the io.js assets belong to the io.js community still. The repo will have moved, but if things for some reason go sour, we do have like a way to get out of that. But this commits us to a path of trying to make it work, which is what we kind of said we want to do.
What was that?
Thanks, Bert.
Bert's so bored that he's back playing his game again.
Sorry, what's up?
Let's try and phrase a question here then. The question that we want to vote on is the question that we move towards joining the foundation and we rename our org to be Node.js so that it's all redirected. We continue releasing under io.js, but we work towards a converged repo of Node, which is the James Snell repo that that group has been working on. and then at that point, actually, that's probably too much to vote on. So the first step is we're joining the foundation, or we're working towards joining the foundation, and the next step is we're moving the org. Is that the basic question here?
Yeah. So what we're voting on here is literally io.js joining the foundation. So we would move the org over, all the working groups would go under, and then we would begin working on this, future combined thing. And as a practical matter, other people would join the TSC from Node. That's the only thing that we're voting on. In terms of like what we do with the io.js brand long term, those are decisions that we will still get to make. We just don't have to make them today. And all of those groups that make those kinds of decisions today will still have the same autonomy that they had before.
Right. Well,
I'm just trying to frame this on the minutes as a question so that we can actually vote on it.
it would be nice if there was like an actual resolution that would make it very clear.
But we're never going to have a resolution to every single question. The real question is, do we still have the ability to answer those questions and to make decisions going forward, right?
That's what I mean, Michael. I mean, I am in favor of joining the foundation. You know this, but like as we find out now, there is some confusion about what it means to join the foundation, and so it would be nice if there was a resolution that said, right, the io.js project intends to join the foundation and will move its repositories over by Friday. Then the scope of what we're voting on is like absolutely clear. Whereas now, like, there's sort of an implicit plan that that we're voting on, but not everybody has read it, etc. It's a bit. I mean, I am. By the way, I am not in favor of putting it off another week because, like, the same happened 2 weeks ago, and the documentation, the plan has been out there, and my feeling is that if people haven't read it by now, they probably won't have read it by the next TC call. So I don't.
So it's funny because so the description that you just said is the exact description of the issue that we're voting on, and it's in the not like in the thread, but just in the description. That's exactly like all the thing that we're voting on, and that's been up for like
pretty
5
much
days.
what I'm writing in the minutes too.
Yeah, and it just didn't say Friday, and I don't think that we should say Friday now because like it may be that we talk to more people tomorrow in this like combined call, and Friday is not a good day. But we're basically saying like as soon as practical, as soon as it makes sense, potentially before the next TC meeting.
Okay.
Okay, so now let's go around.
Bear with me while I write this into a question. Just hang on, just 1 minute.
So, just a quick question to Michael. Is the Node Foundation going to be trademarking io.js then?
Sorry, I was in another tab. So there isn't an io.js trademark. Like we haven't registered it.
Yeah.
I don't know if they would. And if they did, I think probably like Fedora would have to sign off on it. But I mean, we would be moving. I mean, so informally, the working groups own the assets that make up the trademark. So the logo, domain name, Twitter handle, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Those working groups basically own those. Those are moving into the foundation. So yes, the foundation would end up having them. I doubt that we'll go out into the legal work to register the mark. Although the foundation will have the Node.js mark.
Okay, so I framed the voting question to 3 parts. And correct me if these shouldn't all be as part of it. But voting question is: the io.js TC agrees to, number 1, have the io.js project join the Node Foundation. Number 2, rename the entire io.js GitHub org to be Node.js. 3, invite the current Node.js TC onto our TC to form the basis of a Node Foundation TSC. Is that accurate, Michael?
Yes. I also, just as a matter of technically, we would be moving the TSC, like this call, and the other processes and working groups into the policies that we've designed for the foundation as well. Those happen to be identical to what we do now, though. So I think the only difference is that once we invite the other people and we have the kind of combined thing, I think the single company rule comes down a little bit. That's really the only functional difference.
Okay, so there's actually a fourth part, which is agreeing to move all the working groups over as well, effectively.
Well, yeah, that happens when we move the org, right? So. Okay, so do we want to go back around and do the vote thing on this or what?
Is it called the Node Foundation or the Node.js Foundation?
I will find out.
It's not important.
And I mean, it's unclear if we might rename it or something anyway, so don't worry.
Everyone calls it the Node Foundation.
Yeah, Node.js takes too long to say.
Okay, I have put that into this call chat if you want to read that. That's what we're voting on. So is anyone not prepared to vote on that? I will register a 0 vote from Fedor, who put that ahead of time. Ben, are you prepared to make a vote on that?
Yes. The limited scope of this proposal is something I can agree with. So +1 for me.
Let's move on so I don't have to keep on unmuting. Bert.
I'm in favor. The next would be Chris.
+1.
+1.
Shigeki.
No, Sheki's not TC yet, so Trevor, and then me.
Sorry, one clarification, and then I'll be fine to vote. Changing the organization name to Node.js does that mean we'll immediately have to go through and rechange everything that says io.js to Node.js, or can we leave that for now until things get more hammered out?
That will. So you mean in the code base?
Yes.
That'll happen in the convergence repo. So it won't happen in the io.js repo, and other people are already people are actually already doing
that. It'll probably never happen in the io.js repo. It would only ever happen in the convergence.
Yeah, it's possible that io.js may live on just under the foundation and like with its existing name. That's a possibility.
All right, then +1 enough.
Feel the same. +1 for me as well. So that's +1 all around. Michael, the action items are actually all for you there, I think, pretty much. So,
yep,
take it away.
Okay, yeah, I will. So, and then we have a meeting tomorrow that's combined, and then we'll figure out the rest of the details about moving. And then I'm gonna get the foundation to probably buy some stuff for us. We've now blown out the limit on Hangouts, I think, pretty soon. So we have to move to GoToMeeting, and then we're gonna have audio only. So I want to get us like a SoundCloud account to publish under, and blah blah blah. So there's a bunch of crappy logistics there that I will deal with. Okay, what's the next agenda item, y'all?
This is sync methods. So this is issue number 1665, which is put all sync methods behind a flag. And who tagged this as TC agenda? That was Ben did. So Ben, take it away.
Well, actually, someone asked me to put it on the agenda, and that's what I did. Basically, the question is, some people feel that the synchronous methods that exist in, for example, the FS module are harmful, and would like to see them go away. Now, I assume that we all feel that would result in incredible breakage, and that's not something we want. But to quell a lot of discussion, I decided to put it on the agenda. So I would like to hear from you if you would be down for, well, deprecating and eventually removing the synchronous methods. I hope I'm representing the issue fairly here.
I mean, I already commented on it, but no, I'm against deprecating sync methods. I mean, I recognize that there are situations where they might be harmful, but it is not my responsibility to make people, to force people to not use potentially harmful features. Plus, there is like good use cases for them. I would, however, be down with like having a flag that like prints a warning whenever a synchronous or a blocking method is used after the first stick or something.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty vocal out there when I do talking about Node about how these you just shouldn't use them, and there's very few use cases for them. But I'm also against deprecating or removing them. I think they've just become part of what Node is, and people do have legitimate use cases for them. Even I do. But yeah, I agree with Bert here, and also perhaps agree with making documentation changes to be more explicit about how they are not idiomatic for standard Node applications where you expect to have performance and an unblocked event loop.
Don't we have an issue open for a feature where you can run Node with the flag and it'll print warnings whenever people use sync methods after the first tick, which I think would be like a really good way also to help people push past this.
Yeah,
I think
that's something.
that's basically the compromise here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's something that came out of the original issue.
Ah.
So should we do a quick vote? Well, it sounds like they're never going to be deprecated and removed. So should we do a quick vote on implementing a flag to, I would say, print an error message with a stack trace so the call to the sync method can be located?
I don't think that's for here. I really think that's for GitHub and for collaborators to chime in on. I really don't see anything for voting here because I don't see amongst this group any taste for deprecating even. So I just unless somebody wants to chime up now, I don't think there's a vote here. Yeah, okay. The action item is to leave it to GitHub discussion and let collaborators chime in. If there's people that feel strongly against the flag, then it may not happen. But I have a hard time imagining that.
Also, the challenge is, of course, that somebody has to do the work, which, I mean, I don't think anybody has volunteered so far. So we can just decide that we would be okay with the flag and then see if someone wants to implement it.
Right.
I'm actually doing the flag implementation right now.
Oh, cool.
Okay, let's move on. And if anyone doesn't like moving on like this, then just speak up. But we're going to move on to TC nominations. Now, these are just holding issues for now, but Shieki and Brian are newish nominations, and they're currently not TC yet. Michael is also, I think, was nominated around the same time. I think I did that. I have suggested that we do a formal vote on Michael joining the TC next week, just to give us some just warning time that it will happen, rather than just doing it this week. I don't know how the whole foundation thing fits into that, but I'd like to see us vote on that soon.
The foundation thing means that more people will be voting on it.
Okay.
Does it, Michael? Being on the TC, does it work with other roles that you are imagining for yourself after the foundation?
So like I'd actually just vote to table this in general because I didn't want to do this until after the foundation stuff had been worked out. So there'll probably still be like a week or so, but I'll log an issue soon and we can discuss it for at least a couple of weeks. But I'd like to split in half what this group is doing right now, which is part of it is like figuring out what goes into core, and the other part of it is like entirely administrative project stuff. And it would be really nice if like there was a core working group that just dealt with all of this stuff going in and out of core, and then the TSC really was just sort of like dealing with project level votes and changes and spinning up new working groups and like administrative bullshit.
That doesn't sound technical anymore.
What? Yeah, yeah.
The T is for technical. Yeah.
Well, yeah. You're right. But yeah, that's like a long discussion to have. But part of one of the reasons why I think I was nominated is because we have these conflicting ideas about what the TC does, and like if the point of the TC is to figure out at like the low level code stuff what goes into core, I shouldn't be voting in that group. And I think there's an understanding already that we're sort of doing like both of these things in this meeting. So yeah, I'll start an issue about that, and we can table me joining until well after that.
That sounds kind of dramatic to me, but I just want to make sure that we've got Sheki and Brian here who are amazing contributors, and I'd really love to see them move up to TC level. I understand the difficulties with the timing, but I don't want to see this tabled indefinitely. I'd like to see it moved on fairly quickly.
Well, I mean, so that's me joining is a little bit different than them because they're active core contributors. So we don't have to table them joining. Sorry.
Okay. We just probably need to we need to introduce them to. I mean Brian already. Everyone knows Brian. I think Sheki. I don't know if you've been contributing much to Joint Node and whether they have any familiarity with you, but I guess we need to have them, be introduced to you. Okay. Let's move on from that. I'll put some notes in the minutes for that. The next one is we're going to open up to public QA on the io.js channel on Freenode. So if anybody is in there that would like to raise questions for this TC meeting, please do so now. And in the meantime, you can watch Bert play some old DOS games.
I do believe people already asked some questions, but you might have to scroll up a little.
Well, if you've got the questions, can you feed them into this? Because I need to take minutes at the same time.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm scrolling up as we speak. First question, I think, is from the Rebel Robot. After the convert release, will io.js/node still be Semver?
And the answer is yes. I think io.js will just.
I really don't see any disagreement to that. Yeah.
Yeah, the dev policy for the foundation says as much.
Will Node.js also go to Semver? I suppose, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, Node.js is basically going to jump to 3.0 and be Semver at that point. And also, there will be Node.js releases for 1.0 and 2.0 based on the io.js lines.
So. Even Lucas asks, are there plans to symlink Node to io.js in the installers after the first converged release? Are we going to symlink Node to io.js?
I think that is something we haven't discussed, and I think we should. One of the, but maybe not. I mean, maybe it's better to start that on GitHub. One of my concerns is that, what will happen is there will be an LTS version of Node, and realistically, a lot of people that are building stuff on top of Node will be using the LTS release. And at the same time, there will be a bleeding edge, which is nice for contributors and for trying out new features. And it will also be stable in the Semver sense. But right now, it's really hard to use both side by side. And so we should really think about making that work much better than it does today. Because I myself keep switching back between Node 0.10 and io.js at this point, which is really a pain to click through the installer, etc.
There's a thread about this in NG actually about localizing the node install. Localizing is a terrible word. I keep saying it, but basically to install locally to an app rather than globally.
Well, I think I've seen that. That's part of the problem. But the other thing is that right now there's this very strong tendency to, everybody must assume that that thing is called. The binary is called node. Even if you're using io.js, we need to support this node symlink because supposedly everybody assumes node, and I think that is something we should find a way out of. because right now you can't just use, you can, there's tools to switch between different node versions a little bit easier, but it's not possible to have both at the same time. I'll write it down in the minutes, Rob.
Another question. PHP Node asks, will members of the core team be able to revive io.js if they disagree with the direction of the project in the future? I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's open source. It got forked in the first place. I don't see why it couldn't happen again if necessary. As far as I know, nothing's been copyrighted or trademarked, so there are no assets that need to be put over, right?
In fact, I think that if this group was in the foundation managing Node and it voted to leave entirely, it would actually be a lot different than last time, in that there probably wouldn't be an active line, being that we take the entire body of people that are working on it with us. So that would be kind of like the death of Node if we ended up forking again. That said, we've proven that we're willing to do it. So.
There's a question about NAN. I don't quite understand the question. It says, is any plans for NAN resolution in core specifically? Does that mean releasing NAN in core? Is that what that's about? This is one thing.
I mean, I've brought it up a couple times. Should we bring NAN into core? What would that look like? I mean, and to some extent, the stuff that we've just talked about already about taking over the C-level API stuff is all part of this, right? This is a really big, wide discussion that we've constantly had a hard time getting our head around. What does it mean entirely, and how do we stage it and do it in sections?
So I think the current form of NAN, it's just a header file. I think it really doesn't make sense to put it in core because you want to be able to link against different versions, so you're going to have it from NPM anyway. I want 0.10 support, 0.8 support. You have to use it from NPM anyway. I think if we move towards a common API/ABI that lives on top of our JavaScript runtime, i.e. V8, then that would probably live in core rather than outside of, because you'd have proper binary incompatibilities if you had not more than just a header file. That's my understanding.
Yeah, just to clarify, NAN is basically a bunch of macros that convert API calls. So while you can recompile using the same API, you have to recompile for any new API, correct?
Correct,
Yeah,
and in fact,
correct.
it's actually moving to be more templates and classes and stuff rather than just macros for version 2. But it's still got that. It's still just a header file.
Yeah. Well, I would be very open to the thought of bringing that in if it could completely convert to something that provides ABI compatibility. I think that would make life a lot easier for a lot of people.
I don't think the current NAN API is suitable for that.
Okay. That's totally fine too.
There's a pretty strong focus on using templates, and you know how templates work with linkers. Not at all.
Okay, well, is there an issue about this somewhere in one of our many io.js repositories?
No, there's not. So basically talking about an ABI layout. This is what we were talking about a bit earlier, Trevor, just before the call started, because we were talking about Chakra as well. So V8 instability / Chakra / potential Spider Monkey integration. And all of that discussion comes around to us perhaps working on a stable a C++ API layer that lives above these things that protect ourselves from instability and make it possible to change runtimes. That's discussed about in a lot of places across GitHub and on Twitter, but we don't have a focused issue for actually doing something about it. Other than perhaps looking at the work that TJ did in his shim, but I'm not convinced that's a great starting point either.
Okay, where should an issue like that be posted? I don't believe the io.js proper repository would be the best place for a discussion like that. but we
Yeah,
have
maybe
so
we
many.
need to make a new repo for this. There is a new add-ons working group, and maybe that working group should start to be concerned about this.
That sounds like a good idea.
So maybe let's open an issue. Trevor, how about you open an issue on the NAN repo, and we'll figure out where it lives after that.
Will do.
I guess that's it for questions.
Yep. Let's wrap it up unless anyone else has anything to add. Okay, next meeting would be the 20th, I think. OSX, and it doesn't have a good calendar you can easily pull up quickly.
20th.
20th. So I'm not sure I'll be around for that one, but I don't, unless anyone else has an objection to the 20th. We'll be meeting under foundation-ish sort of situation. So does that mean we invite, we keep this time slot and invite the joint node TC onto it, Michael?
Yeah. So we have the meeting tomorrow, and I'll figure out who and all that we need to invite from that side. But yeah.
So of course, if they can't make it, we could change the time slot. But I really like how we have found a sort of fixed time slot. I think that's really helpful. Even if it sucks a little bit for Rob, though.
Yeah.
It sucks worse for Shieki, and it's going to suck if we bring on more Asian contributors, which I think will make sense to into the future. We've got so many users in China, so we need to keep an open mind about being flexible. So for just for reference, for me it's 6 a.m. For Shieki it's 5 a.m. So for anyone else that's further across, it's going to be even worse.
Yeah, this is another case where we might get some traction out of potentially splitting it up, but we'll see.
Okay, let's do that. Let's end the call now. Thanks everyone for watching and participating on IRC, and see you all next week and on GitHub.
Thanks.
Bye.
Cheers.
Goodbye.
Thanks, everyone.
See you later.
Goodbye.
Bye.